The alien ships arrived exactly when the ultimatum expired. Dr. Kim watched from the space station as hundreds of massive vessels emerged from what looked like tears in space itself. They weren't like the sleek ships humans imagined in movies. These were organic-looking structures that seemed to be made of living shadow, constantly shifting and changing shape as they moved through the darkness. Each ship was the size of a city, and there were so many of them that they blocked out entire sections of stars. As they approached Earth, the temperature in space around them dropped to absolute zero, and any human-made satellite that got too close simply stopped working, but the aliens had not expected what they found waiting for them. Dr. Rodriguez stood on the roof of her research center in Peru, surrounded by thousands of awakened humans from across South America. Together, they had spoken a message into the sky that was visible from space, words of light written across the atmosphere itself. That said simply, "Earth stands ready." Around the world, similar gatherings had formed. In Australia, Aboriginal elders who had awakened to their true heritage were teaching others how to speak to the land itself, asking the continent to become a weapon if needed. In Africa, communities that had maintained connections to ancient wisdom were creating shields of pure energy that could protect entire countries. In Europe, awakened scientists were combining their new abilities with modern technology to create defenses that existed in multiple dimensions at once. The first contact between the two civilizations happened over the Pacific Ocean. A single alien ship, smaller than the others, descended through Earth's atmosphere. It moved without any visible propulsion, simply willing itself through space as if the laws of physics didn't apply to it. As it approached the ocean's surface, the water below began to boil and turn black. Dr. Martinez, now serving as one of Earth's primary representatives, stood on a floating platform that had been spoken into existence by a group of awakened engineers. She wasn't alone. Beside her stood the Amazon elder, Dr. Rodriguez, and dozens of other humans who had learned to use their voices as weapons. The alien ship stopped a few hundred feet above them, and a section of its hull simply melted away. What emerged wasn't what any of them had expected. The being that floated down to meet them looked almost human, but wrong in ways that made everyone's skin crawl. It was too tall, with limbs that bent in directions that shouldn't be possible. Its eyes were completely black, and when it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You have had your time," it said, the words causing the air around them to vibrate painfully. 5,000 years to play with powers you do not understand. Now you will return what belongs to us or watch your world burn. The Amazon elder stepped forward, her own voice carrying power that made the alien take a step back. "These abilities do not belong to you anymore. We have earned them through wisdom, through sacrifice, through 5,000 years of learning to use them responsibly. You gave them to us expecting us to destroy ourselves. Instead, we became something greater than you ever imagined." The alien creature laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You think your primitive understanding of our gifts makes you equal? To us, you are insects playing with forces that created galaxies. We will take back what is ours, and we will use it to remake this universe in our image." Dr. Martinez felt the combined will of every awakened human on Earth flowing through her as she spoke her response. "Then you'll have to take them from us." The war began with a single word. The alien spoke a command in its own language, and the ocean around them began to turn to ice. But before the transformation could complete, 1,000,000 human voices spoke in unison from around the world, their combined words carried by satellites and radio waves to create a planetary chorus. "No," they said together, and reality itself paused to listen. The ice stopped spreading. The alien's power, which should have been absolute, met the collective will of an entire awakened species and found itself blocked for the first time in eons. The creature's black eyes widened in what might have been surprise or fear. "Impossible," it whispered. What followed was unlike any battle that had ever been fought. The aliens attacked with weapons that could reshape matter at the molecular level, that could stop time in localized areas, that could turn gravity itself into a crushing force. They spoke words of power that had conquered 1,000 worlds, commands that could make stars go supernova or black holes collapse, but humanity fought back with something the aliens had never encountered. Unity. Every awakened human on Earth was connected through their shared abilities, their voices joining together to create defenses and weapons that were stronger than anything the aliens possessed. When an alien ship tried to destroy Tokyo, 10 million awakened humans spoke the city into a pocket dimension where it would be safe. When another ship attempted to boil the Atlantic Ocean, coastal communities on both sides worked together to speak the water into a protective barrier that absorbed the attack and turned it into healing energy. Dr. Kim, still monitoring from space, watched in amazement as the battle unfolded. The aliens had superior technology and individual power, but they fought as isolated beings, each one trying to impose its will on reality alone. Humans, on the other hand, had learned to blend their voices together, to support each other's efforts, to create collective will that was exponentially stronger than the sum of its parts. The turning point came when Dr. Rodriguez made a discovery that changed the entire nature of the conflict. While studying the alien language during the battle, she realized that their words of power weren't actually their own. They were using a corrupted version of the same fundamental forces that humans had learned to speak to. The aliens had stolen their abilities from other species, just as they had originally given them to humans, expecting them to be stolen back. This meant that every word of power the aliens spoke was actually a question asked to the universe itself, and the universe could choose whether or not to answer. Dr. Rodriguez shared this discovery with every awakened human on Earth, and suddenly the nature of the battle shifted completely. Instead of fighting the aliens directly, humanity began speaking to the universe on their behalf. They asked the cosmos to ignore the aliens' commands, to refuse their orders, to choose cooperation over domination. And the universe listened. One by one, the alien ships found their weapons failing. Their ability to manipulate reality began to weaken as the fundamental forces they had been commanding for millions of years started to turn away from them. They had ruled through fear and force for so long that they had forgotten how to ask for cooperation. But humans had spent 5,000 years learning exactly that. The final moment of the war came when the largest alien ship, the command vessel, descended toward Earth's surface with the intention of speaking the entire planet out of existence. It was a word of power so terrible that it had destroyed entire solar systems, but as the alien commander began to speak, every human voice on Earth joined together in a different kind of word, not a command, but a request. They asked the Earth itself to choose its own fate. The planet responded by speaking back. Every mountain, every ocean, every forest, every grain of sand added its voice to humanity's chorus. The combined will of an entire living world met the aliens' command and simply said no. The word of destruction was not just blocked, it was transformed. Instead of ending Earth, it became a new beginning. The alien fleet found itself gently but irresistibly pushed away from the planet. Their ships carried by currents of energy that felt like a parent moving a misbehaving child to a timeout. Dr. Martinez watched as the alien commander, standing on its failing ship, looked back at Earth with something that might have been respect in its black eyes. "How?" it asked, its voice no longer carrying the power it once had. The Amazon elder, her words carried across space by the will of the planet itself, gave the answer. "We learn to ask instead of demand. We learn to cooperate instead of conquer. We learn that true power comes not from taking what you want, but from being given what you need by those who choose to trust you." As the alien fleet disappeared back into the darkness between stars, Dr. Kim received one final transmission from their commander. It was simple, but it carried weight that suggested the aliens would not be returning. "We understand now," the message said. "This world belongs to you. Use your gifts wisely." The war was over, but Dr. Rodriguez knew that for humanity it was really just the beginning. They had proven themselves worthy of the powers they carried, but now they had to decide what to do with them. As awakened humans around the world began the work of healing their planet and reaching out to other worlds that might need their help. One thing was clear, the 5,000-year silence had ended not with humanity returning to what they once were, but with them becoming something entirely new. They had found their voice, and now the entire universe was listening. Captain Elena Rodriguez walked through the rusty corridors of Dock 47, her boots echoing against metal floors that had seen better days. The smell of old grease and recycled air filled her nose. This wasn't exactly what she had pictured when she got her promotion to captain. "There she is," said Commander Williams, pointing to a ship that looked like it belonged in a museum rather than active service. "The TDF Persistence, your new command." Elena stared at the vessel before her, while other ships in the dock gleamed. With sleek alien technology and smooth curves, the Persistence looked like someone had welded together spare parts from a junkyard. Her hull was gray and patched in dozens of places. The weapon systems looked ancient, and the engine ports were blackened from years of use. "You're kidding me, right?" Elena asked, hoping this was some kind of joke. Williams shook his head. "Afraid not." Orders came down from Admiral Chun himself. "The Persistence needs a captain, and you're it." Elena had heard about ships like this. They called them dinosaurs, old human designs from back when Earth first started exploring space. Before humanity joined the Galactic Council and got access to advanced alien technology. Before they learned how things were supposed to be done. "Sir, with respect, what am I supposed to do with this thing? Half the galaxy's navies have ships that could vaporize this bucket of bolts without breaking a sweat. Your job is to take her on patrol, runs in the outer systems, nothing fancy. Just show the flag and make sure pirates know we're watching." Williams handed her a datapad. "She's scheduled for scrapping in 6 months anyway. Consider this a temporary assignment." As they walked closer to the ship, Elena noticed a group of alien dignitaries touring the shipyard. She recognized the tall, blue-skinned figure of Ambassador Zethkri from the hegemony. His species, the Valthyr, were known throughout the galaxy for their advanced military technology. Next to him walked his aide, a shorter reptilian creature with 4 arms who was constantly taking notes on a holographic device. The ambassador's party stopped near. A sleek new destroyer that incorporated hegemony energy shields and plasma cannons. Zethkri nodded approvingly as a human officer explained the ship's capabilities. "Excellent work," the ambassador said in his translated voice. "Your species shows promise when you embrace superior designs." His aide gestured toward the Persistence. "What about that vessel, Ambassador?" Zethkri barely glanced in their direction. "Another crude human contraption from their primitive era. Mark it as militarily insignificant in your report. It poses no threat to anyone." Elena felt her jaw clench. She'd served in the Terran Defense Fleet for 12 years, working her way up from ensign to captain. She'd fought pirates, defended colonies, and earned every promotion through blood and sweat. Now they wanted her to babysit a rust bucket while aliens dismissed human engineering as worthless. "Captain?" Williams was looking at her with concern. "Everything all right?" "Fine, sir. Just wondering what I did to deserve this." They climbed aboard through the main airlock. The interior was just as outdated as the exterior, but Elena had to admit it was clean. Someone had been taking care of this old girl, even if they couldn't make her pretty. "Your crew is already aboard," Williams said. 23 volunteers from various ships. "Good people, but double quote." He paused. "But what?" "Let's just say they're not exactly the first choice for prestigious assignments." They made their way to the bridge, which was cramped compared to modern ships. Instead of holographic displays and neural interfaces, the Persistence had physical switches, analog gauges, and screens that actually had pixels you could see. It looked like something from a history book. "Captain on deck," called out a gruff voice. Elena turned to see her new chief engineer, a stocky man with grease-stained coveralls and hands that had clearly seen decades of hard work. His name tag read Chief Reynolds. "At ease, Chief. I'm Captain Rodriguez." "Looks like we'll be working together," Reynolds nodded. "Been keeping this old lady running for the past 8 years, Captain. She's got more personality than most people realize." "Personality, huh? Is that what we're calling it?" The chief engineer smiled. Come on, I'll show you around. You might be surprised. As Williams headed back to his duties, Reynolds led Elena through the ship. The crew quarters were small but comfortable. The mess hall could barely fit 20 people at once. The medical bay had equipment that looked ancient but functional. Now here's where things get interesting, Reynolds said as they entered the engineering section. See, when the Persistence was built, humans didn't have access to all that fancy alien tech. We had to make do with what we knew. Elena looked around at the reactor core. Instead of the crystal-based power systems used in modern ships, this one ran on good old-fashioned fusion. The kind of reactor her grandfather might have recognized. The thing is, Reynolds continued, when you can't rely on advanced computers to do everything for you, you learn to be creative. Every system on this ship has been modified, upgraded, or jury-rigged in some way. She might not look like much, but she's tougher than she appears. They moved to the weapons bay, where Elena saw railguns instead of energy weapons. Actual projectile launchers that fired chunks of metal at incredible speeds. These old kinetic weapons pack quite a punch, Reynolds explained. Sure, they're not as sophisticated as plasma cannons, but metal moving fast enough will ruin anyone's day. Why haven't these been upgraded to modern systems? Budget cuts, mostly. Command figured she wasn't worth the expense since she was headed for the scrapyard anyway. But between you and me, Captain, sometimes the old ways work better than people think. Over the next few hours, Elena met the rest of her crew. Lieutenant Chin was her navigation officer, a young woman fresh out of the academy who had requested assignment to an older ship because she wanted to learn real navigation instead of just following computer prompts. Sergeant Thompson ran security with a team of Marines who treated their outdated armor and weapons like prized possessions. Dr. Wilson, the ship's medic, had served on frontier worlds where advanced medical equipment wasn't available. He could perform surgery with tools that most doctors would consider primitive. Communications Officer Park had a gift for getting signals through interference that would stump modern AI systems. Each crew member had a story. Each had chosen to serve on an old ship for their own reasons. Some wanted to learn skills that were becoming lost arts. Others had been overlooked for assignments on newer vessels. A few were just stubborn enough to believe that human ingenuity was worth more than alien technology. As evening shift began, Elena found herself in the captain's quarters reviewing the ship's specifications. The Persistence was smaller than modern frigates, with thicker armor but weaker shields. Her top speed was respectable but not impressive. Her sensor range was limited compared to ships with quantum detection arrays. On paper, she was exactly what Ambassador Zethkri had called her, militarily insignificant, but as Elena read through Chief Reynolds' maintenance logs, she began to see something different. Every repair had been done with care. Every modification had been tested and retested. The crew had spent years learning every bolt, wire, and circuit on this ship. There was something to be said for that kind of knowledge. Something that couldn't be programmed into a computer or downloaded from an alien database. Elena made her decision. If Command wanted her to take this ship on patrol, she'd do it right. The Persistence might be old, but she was still a Terran Defense Fleet vessel, and her crew deserved better than being dismissed as insignificant. The next morning, she called the crew together in the mess hall. I know this isn't the assignment any of us expected, she began. But we're here now, and we're going to make the best of it. This ship has been protecting human space for longer than some of you have been alive. She deserves our respect. Chief Reynolds grinned. You planning to show these youngsters what an old ship can do, Captain? That's exactly what I'm planning. Chief, we leave for the Outer Rim tomorrow. Time to remind everyone that humans don't need fancy alien tech to get the job done. As the crew dispersed to prepare for departure, Elena looked out through the viewport at the sleek modern ships in the dock. They were impressive, no doubt about it. But the Persistence had something those ships didn't have, a crew that understood every inch of their vessel and the determination to prove that being underestimated could be an advantage. None of them knew that war was already brewing on the frontier. None of them suspected that their supposedly insignificant ship would soon be humanity's last hope. They just knew they had work to do, and they were ready to do it the human way, the hard way, the stubborn way, the way that had gotten humanity to the stars in the first place. 3 months had passed since Captain Rodriguez took command of the Persistence, and life in the Outer Rim had settled into a routine. They'd chased off a few pirate groups, helped repair a damaged cargo hauler, and even rescued some miners whose equipment had failed on a small asteroid. Nothing exciting, but honest work that kept the space lanes safe. Elena was reviewing patrol reports in her quarters when the ship's communication system crackled to life. The voice of Communications Officer Park filled the room, urgent and tense. "Captain, to the bridge immediately. We're receiving multiple distress signals." Elena rushed to the bridge, where she found her crew hunched over their stations. The main screen showed a tactical display of the New Aberdeen system, one of humanity's newer mining colonies about 6 hours away at maximum speed. "What's the situation?" Elena asked. "Multiple emergency broadcasts from New Aberdeen," Park reported. "They're under attack. The signals are breaking up, but I'm picking up references to massive alien ships." Lieutenant Chun looked up from her navigation console. "Captain, I'm also detecting energy signatures consistent with a large fleet engagement. Something big is happening out there." Elena felt her stomach drop. New Aberdeen was home to nearly 50,000 people, mostly miners and their families. The colony's defenses consisted of a few patrol boats and some orbital platforms, nothing that could stand up to a serious military assault. "Set course for New Aberdeen maximum speed," she ordered. "And send an emergency message to Fleet Command. Tell them we're responding to the distress call." The next 6 hours felt like an eternity. As they traveled through hyperspace, more reports filtered in through subspace communications. The attackers weren't pirates or raiders. They were hegemony forces, a massive fleet that had appeared without warning and begun systematically destroying human installations. Dr. Wilson joined them on the bridge as they dropped out of hyperspace. At the edge of the New Aberdeen system, what they saw made everyone fall silent. The mining colony was gone. Where orbital stations had once processed asteroid ore, only debris remained. The planet's surface was scarred with impact craters from orbital bombardment. Worst of all, spread across the system like a deadly constellation, was the largest alien fleet any of them had ever seen. "Holy ... quote Sergeant Thompson started, then caught himself. "Captain, I count over 200 vessels. Dreadnoughts, battlecruisers, destroyers. This isn't a raid. It's an invasion." Elena stared at the tactical display. The alien ships moved. In perfect formation, their sleek hulls gleaming with energy shields and advanced armor. At the center of the fleet was a massive vessel that dwarfed everything around it, easily 10 times the size of the largest human battleship. "That's the Supremacy of Worlds," Lieutenant Chun whispered. "The hegemony flagship. I studied it at the academy. It's supposed to be indestructible." Before Elena could respond, her communications officer spoke up. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from Admiral Ko. She's requesting all available ships to fall back to Kepler Station." The main screen flickered, and Admiral Ko's face appeared. The normally composed fleet commander looked haggard, her uniform torn and her left arm in a medical sling. "All ships, this is Admiral Ko aboard the Defiant. We're conducting a fighting. Withdrawal to Kepler Station. The enemy has superior numbers and technology. Our conventional tactics aren't working against their adaptive systems." Elena could see explosions in the background behind the Admiral. The flagship's bridge was clearly taking damage. "Their energy weapons cut through our shields like they're not even there," Ko continued. "Their armor adapts to our plasma weapons within minutes. We've lost the Intrepid, the Yorktown, and the New Tokyo. Fall back to Kepler Station and prepare for a last stand." The transmission cut out, leaving the bridge of the Persistence in stunned silence. "Captain," Chief Reynolds called from the engineering station, "I'm reading massive energy signatures from the alien fleet. They're powering up for another attack run." Elena watched as the hegemony forces began to move. Their ships accelerated with impossible grace, energy weapons charging with An eerie blue glow. In the distance, she could see the remnants of the human fleet, perhaps 30 ships where there had once been over 100. "Ma'am, we should probably get out of here," Sergeant Thompson suggested. "The Persistence isn't exactly built for this kind of fight." Elena knew he was right. Their old frigate wouldn't last 5 minutes against those alien dreadnoughts. But as she watched the enemy fleet advance on the retreating human forces, something stubborn inside her rebelled. "Park, are you picking up any other signals from the colony?" The communications officer worked frantically at her console. "I'm detecting some weak emergency beacons from the planet's surface. Looks like evacuation shelters. There might be survivors down there." How many people could those shelters hold? "Maybe 1,000 if they're packed tight." Elena looked at the tactical display again. The alien fleet was focused on pursuing the main human force. None of them seemed to be paying attention to the planet itself or to one small, insignificant frigate sitting quietly at the edge of the system. "Chief, how are our stealth systems?" Reynolds checked his instruments. "Working fine, but Captain, our stealth won't hide us if we start shooting. These aliens have sensor technology that makes ours look like a child's toy." "I'm not planning to shoot at them," Elena said. "Not yet, anyway. I want to rescue those survivors." Dr. Wilson stepped forward. "Captain, with respect, that's suicide. Even if we could get to the planet without being detected, how would we get back out with 1,000 refugees?" Elena studied the enemy formation. The hegemony ships moved with mechanical precision, following predetermined patterns. They were clearly confident in their superiority, so confident that they weren't even bothering to scan for threats they considered beneath their notice. "Look at them," she said. "They're not expecting resistance from anything as small as us. Their sensors are focused on capital ships and major threats. We're not even worth noticing." Lieutenant Chun caught on first. "You want to use our insignificance as camouflage?" "Exactly. We go in quiet, pick up survivors, and get out before anyone notices we were there." Chief Reynolds scratched his chin thoughtfully. "It's crazy enough that it might work. The aliens probably have us classified as a minor support vessel. Their AI might not even flag us as a legitimate target." Elena made her decision. "Chun, plot a course to the planet using asteroid fields for cover. Reynolds, I want all non-essential systems powered down. We're going to drift in like a piece of debris." As the crew began preparations, Elena opened a secure channel to record. A message for Fleet Command. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the TDF Persistence. We're attempting a rescue mission at New Aberdeen. If something happens to us, I want Command to know that this crew chose to stay and fight rather than run. The hegemony thinks human ships like ours don't matter. Maybe it's time we prove them wrong." The next 2 hours were the longest of Elena's life. They drifted through the outer system, engines cold, hoping that their small size and outdated technology would keep them invisible. Twice, alien patrol ships passed close enough that Elena could see individual weapon ports on their hulls. When they finally reached New Aberdeen's atmosphere, Dr. Wilson and Sergeant Thompson led rescue teams to the surface while the ship maintained position behind the planet's largest moon. They found nearly 800 survivors in the emergency shelters, families, miners, technicians who had managed to reach safety when the attack began. Loading that many people onto a ship designed for 23 crew members was a nightmare of logistics. They packed refugees into every available space, cargo holds, corridors, even the engineering sections. The ship's life support systems strained under the load. "Captain," Chief Reynolds reported as the last shuttle returned from the surface, "we're at 300% capacity. Environmental systems are redlining and we're way over our mass limits." Elena looked at the tactical display. The alien fleet had moved on, pursuing the human forces toward Kepler Station. The immediate area was clear, but they still had to get these people to safety. "Can we make the jump to hyperspace with this much mass?" "Maybe, but it won't be pretty and we sure won't be fast." Elena nodded. "Do it. Get us to Kepler Station." As the Persistence limped away from New Aberdeen, Her hull groaning under the weight of her human cargo, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The hegemony had shown their hand superior technology, overwhelming numbers, and complete contempt for human military capability, but they'd also shown something else. They were so confident in their superiority that they barely noticed ships like the Persistence. That arrogance might be their weakness. Elena looked at her exhausted crew, working frantically to keep 800 refugees alive in a ship designed for 24. They were proving that humans didn't need the best technology to accomplish the impossible. Sometimes all they needed was the stubborn refusal to give up. The war had begun, and humanity was losing badly. But the Persistence and her crew had just reminded everyone that being underestimated could be the greatest advantage of all. The journey to Kepler Station took 18 grueling hours. The Persistence, packed with refugees and running on emergency power, struggled through hyperspace like an overloaded truck climbing a mountain. When they finally dropped back into normal space, Elena could see why Admiral Ko had chosen this location for humanity's last stand. Kepler Station was a massive orbital fortress, bristling with defense platforms and surrounded by the largest minefield in human space. What remained of the Terran defense fleet had formed a defensive line around the station, maybe 40 ships total, including a few battered cruisers and the flagship Defiant. It wasn't nearly enough. "Captain," Lieutenant Chun reported from her station, "I'm reading the enemy fleet on long-range sensors. They're about 6 hours out and they're bringing everything." Elena nodded grimly. After dropping off the refugees at the station's emergency shelters, she'd attended the fleet briefing with the other ship commanders. The news had been devastating. The hegemony wasn't just attacking random colonies. They were systematically destroying every human military installation in the Outer Rim. "Their technology is beyond anything we've seen," Admiral Ko had explained to the assembled captains. "Energy weapons that adapt to our shield frequencies in real time. Armor that learns to counter our plasma cannons after just a few hits. And their AI tactical systems coordinate fleet movements with perfect precision." Captain Blake of the cruiser Normandy had raised the obvious question. "What about our newer ships? The ones with incorporated alien technology?" "That's part of the problem," Ko replied. "Their systems recognize alien tech patterns. The more advanced our ships are, the faster their adaptive defenses learn to counter them. It's like they've been preparing for this war for years." Now, as Elena sat on the bridge of the Persistence, watching the enemy fleet approach like a storm front, she understood the terrible irony. Humanity's most advanced ships, the ones they were most proud of, were also the most vulnerable. "Captain," Chief Reynolds called from engineering, "I've been thinking about what the Admiral said." "About their adaptive systems. What about them, Chief?" "Well, adaptation requires data, right? Their computers need to scan our weapons and shields, analyze the energy patterns, then develop countermeasures. But what if they encounter something they've never seen before?" Elena raised an eyebrow. "Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" "I'm saying our old kinetic weapons and basic fusion systems might be so primitive that their fancy AI doesn't know how to handle them. It's like bringing a rock to a laser fight. Sometimes the rock wins because nobody expects it." Before Elena could respond, the tactical alarm sounded. "Contact?" Lieutenant Chun announced. "Enemy fleet is dropping out of hyperspace." The main screen lit up with tactical markers as over 200 hegemony vessels materialized in space. Their formation was perfect, a deadly geometric pattern that would allow maximum firepower while maintaining optimal defensive positions. At the center of it all loomed the supremacy of worlds, its massive hull gleaming with energy shields. "All ships, this is Admiral Ko," the fleet commander's voice crackled over the comm. "Remember, we're not trying to win this fight. We're trying to buy time for the evacuation ships to reach the core worlds. Make every shot count." The battle began immediately. Hegemony forces launched their attack with clinical precision, energy. Beams lancing out across space to strike the human defensive line. Elena watched in horror as the destroyer Wellington simply vanished in a flash of superheated plasma. Its shields overwhelmed in seconds, the human fleet fought back desperately. Plasma cannons and photon torpedoes filled space with brilliant flashes of light. For a moment, it looked like they might have a chance. Several alien ships took hits and appeared damaged, but then the hegemony's adaptive systems kicked in. Within minutes, their shields had adjusted to counter human energy weapons. Their armor began absorbing plasma bursts that should have been devastating. The alien fleet pressed forward, seemingly invulnerable. "This is hopeless," Sergeant Thompson muttered. Watching another human ship explode on the tactical display, Elena stared at the battle, her mind racing. The Persistence was positioned in the rear guard, considered too weak to be part of the main defensive line. Most of the alien fleet was ignoring them entirely, focusing on the larger threats. "Chief," she said suddenly, "those kinetic weapons of ours, how much punch do they really pack?" Reynolds checked his console. "Our main railgun can fire a tungsten projectile at about 12% of light speed. Old-fashioned physics, mass times velocity equals a really bad day for whoever's on the receiving end. And our nuclear missiles? Basic. Fusion warheads, nothing fancy. The kind of weapons we used before we learned about antimatter and exotic energy systems." Elena made a decision that would have seemed insane to any rational person. "Take us into the fight, Captain?" Dr. Wilson looked at her in alarm. "We can't possibly engage those dreadnoughts directly. We're not going to engage them directly. We're going to be ghosts." Elena turned to Lieutenant Chun. "Plot a course through the debris field from the destroyed ships. Use the wreckage as cover?" "Ma'am, with respect, what exactly are we trying to accomplish?" Elena pointed at the tactical display where hegemony forces were systematically destroying the human fleet. "Look at their formation. They're so focused on the big ships that they're not even scanning the rear areas. To them, we're just another piece of space junk." The Persistence began moving through the battlefield like a scavenger, using destroyed ships and debris as camouflage. Elena watched the tactical display carefully, looking for the right opportunity. "There," she said, pointing to a damaged hegemony destroyer that had separated from the main formation. "That ship took a hit from the Defiant. Its shields are down for repairs." "Captain, are you suggesting we attack a ship 50 times our size?" Communications Officer Park asked. "I'm suggesting we test Chief Reynolds' theory about primitive weapons." The Persistence crept closer to the enemy destroyer, hidden among the wreckage of a human cruiser. At this range, Elena could see the alien ship's sleek hull and the energy patterns of its adaptive armor system. It was beautiful in a deadly way, a masterpiece of advanced engineering. "Railgun targeted and ready," Sergeant Thompson reported from the weapons console. "Single tungsten penetrator, maximum velocity." "Fire!" the railgun discharged with a sound like thunder. The tungsten projectile streaked across space at 12% of light speed, a simple chunk of metal moving faster than any human weapon had a right to move. The result was spectacular. The alien destroyer's adaptive armor designed to counter energy weapons and exotic matter had no defense against basic kinetic force. The projectile punched through the hull like it was made of paper, causing a chain reaction of explosions that tore the ship apart. For a moment, the entire battlefield seemed to pause. The destruction of a hegemony vessel by an unknown attacker caught everyone by surprise. Elena could almost hear the alien AI systems trying to process what had just happened. "Did we just—" Lieutenant Chun started. "We just killed a destroyer." "With a rock and some physics," Chief Reynolds said with satisfaction. "Their computers probably don't even know how to classify that weapon." But Elena was already moving on to the next target. There, that cruiser supporting the flagship's left flank. It's distracted by the Normandy's attack. The Persistence ghosted through the debris field, taking advantage of the chaos as both sides tried to understand what had happened to the destroyer. Elena's crew worked with deadly efficiency, using every trick they'd learned in months of patrol duty. "Nuclear missile loaded," Sergeant Thompson reported. "Basic fusion warhead, proximity fuse. Launch when ready." The missile streaked toward the alien cruiser, its primitive guidance system actually working in their favor. Modern countermeasures were designed to stop sophisticated weapons with quantum guidance and exotic warheads. A simple fusion bomb with basic targeting was beneath their notice. The explosion gutted the cruiser's engine section, sending it spinning out of control. Elena didn't wait to see the final result. Next target. Keep us moving. Over the next hour, the Persistence became a nightmare for the Hegemony fleet, appearing out of nowhere to strike isolated ships, then vanishing back into the debris before anyone could retaliate. Their primitive weapons, dismissed as obsolete by galactic standards, proved devastatingly effective against defenses designed for more advanced threats. "Captain," Park called out, "I'm detecting increased chatter on alien communication frequencies. They're trying to coordinate a search for us." "Let them search," Elena replied. "They're looking for a modern stealth ship with advanced cloaking. They're not looking for a garbage scow hiding in plain sight." The psychological effect was becoming obvious. Hegemony ships began breaking formation to hunt for the mysterious attacker. Perfect coordination gave way to individual commanders making independent decisions. The alien fleet's greatest strength, their unified tactical AI, was working against them. "Elena," Admiral KO's voice came over a direct channel. "I don't know what you're doing over there, but keep doing it. You've got them rattled." The battle had been raging for 6 hours, and the Persistence was running on fumes. Elena could feel the ship shuddering with each maneuver, her old engines pushed far beyond their design limits. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits, and the smell of burning electronics filled the air. "Captain, we've got problems," Chief Reynolds called from engineering, his voice strained. "Primary power coupling is failing, and I'm reading stress fractures in the hull plating. She's held together this long by pure stubbornness, but we're pushing our luck." Elena looked at the tactical display. In the past few hours, the Persistence had destroyed 8 enemy vessels and damaged twice as many. But each attack had cost them something. Their railgun was down to its last 3 rounds. Most of their nuclear missiles were gone. And worst of all, the enemy was finally starting to adapt. "They're learning our patterns," Lieutenant Chun reported grimly. "I'm seeing Hegemony ships posting guards around their damaged vessels. They know someone's out here picking them off." Elena nodded. It had been inevitable. The alien commanders might have been arrogant, but they weren't stupid. After losing over 20 ships to an invisible attacker, they'd finally started taking the threat seriously. "Admiral KO to all ships," the fleet commander's voice crackled over the comm. "We've hurt them, but they're regrouping. Hegemony forces are preparing for a final push on the station. All remaining vessels, prepare for one last stand." Elena looked around her bridge. Her crew was exhausted, running on adrenaline and determination. Dr. Wilson had been treating injured personnel throughout the ship. Communications Officer Park had jury-rigged their scanning systems 3 times after they'd been damaged by debris. Sergeant Thompson's weapons console was held together with spare parts and hope, but they were still fighting, still proving that humans didn't need the latest technology to make a difference. "Captain," Park suddenly called out, "I'm intercepting Hegemony communications. They're specifically hunting for us now. Commander Vextar has assigned a full battle group to find and destroy the primitive vessel disrupting fleet operations." Elena felt a cold smile spread across her face. "So now we're worth their attention. Good, Chief. How much power can you give me for one more run?" Reynolds checked his instruments. "If I reroute everything from life support and non-essential systems, maybe 30 minutes at full power. After that, we'll be dead in space. That'll have to be enough." Elena studied the enemy formation. The Hegemony fleet had reorganized into a defensive screen around their flagship while preparing for their final assault on Kepler Station. They'd learned to guard against her hit-and-run tactics, but Elena had noticed something during the long battle. Every time the Persistence had struck, the alien ships had reacted with mechanical precision. Their tactical systems followed predictable patterns, always choosing the most logical response. They were smart, but they weren't creative. "Chun, plot a course directly toward the enemy flagship." "Captain?" Lieutenant Chun looked at her in alarm. "That's suicide." The supremacy of worlds has enough firepower to vaporize us before we get within weapons range. That's what they'll expect us to think. Elena pointed at the tactical display. Look at their formation. They've created a perfect defensive screen, designed to stop any conventional attack. But what if we don't attack conventionally? Chief. Reynolds caught on first. You want to ram them? Not exactly. I want them to think we're going to ram them. Elena's mind was racing, putting together a plan that was either brilliant or completely insane. Their AI will calculate our trajectory and assume we're making a desperate suicide run. They'll focus all their defensive fire on us, trying to stop what they think is an inevitable collision. And while they're shooting at us, Sergeant Thompson asked, while they're shooting at us, Admiral KO and the rest of the fleet hit them from the flanks. Classic misdirection. Make them look at the left hand while the right hand does the real work. Dr. Wilson shook his head. Elena, this plan assumes we'll survive long enough to be a distraction. The moment we break cover, every weapon in that fleet will target us. Maybe, but remember, their adaptive systems are designed to counter advanced threats. They've never encountered a ship crazy enough to charge directly at a dreadnought. Elena opened a channel to Admiral KO. Admiral, this is Rodriguez. I have an idea, but it's going to require precise timing. She quickly outlined her plan. There was a long pause before KO responded. Captain, that's the most insane tactical proposal I've ever heard. It's also our best chance. The Admiral's voice carried a mixture of admiration and concern. Are you sure your ship can take that kind of punishment? Elena looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. They all knew this was likely a one-way mission. But not one of them looked ready to back down. We'll find out, Admiral. Give us 3 minutes to get into position, then hit them with everything you've got. The Persistence began moving toward the enemy fleet, leaving the safety of the debris field for the first time in hours. Elena felt her heart pounding as they accelerated toward the massive alien formation. Enemy sensors have acquired us, Park reported. Multiple targeting locks from the entire fleet. Here we go, Elena muttered. All hands, brace for impact. This is going to get rough. The first energy beam barely missed them, superheating the space where they'd been seconds before. Elena threw the ship into a wild, evasive pattern, pushing the ancient maneuvering thrusters to their limits. Hull temperature rising, Chief Reynolds called out. That was too close. More beams lanced out from the enemy fleet, each one closer than the last. The Persistence twisted and turned like a drunken bird, avoiding destruction by mere meters. Her old hull groaned with each maneuver, but she held together. They're concentrating fire on us, Chun reported, her voice tight with concentration, as she plotted their erratic course. I count 50 ships targeting us directly. Elena could see the enemy flagship growing larger on the main screen. The supremacy of worlds was enormous, a city-sized vessel bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Its energy shields shimmered like a rainbow aurora, beautiful and deadly. Captain, Sergeant Thompson shouted over the noise of straining systems. We're taking hits. Port armor is compromised, and I'm reading atmospheric breaches on decks 3 and 4. The ship shook violently as another energy beam clipped their starboard side. Emergency lights bathed the bridge in red as damage reports flooded in. But they were still moving, still drawing fire from the entire enemy fleet. Admiral KO to all ships, came the transmission Elena had been waiting for. Execute flanking maneuver now. All vessels attack pattern Delta. The human fleet burst from concealment around Kepler Station's far side, hitting the hegemony forces while their attention was focused on the Persistence. Plasma cannons and photon torpedoes struck alien ships that had no idea they were coming. Elena watched with satisfaction as 3 enemy cruisers exploded under the surprise attack. The alien formation wavered as commanders tried to respond to threats from multiple directions. It's working, Park shouted. Their coordination is breaking down. But the Persistence was paying the price for her role as distraction. Another energy beam punched through their weakened hull, sending shockwaves through the ship. Elena could hear the groaning of metal under stress, the hiss of escaping atmosphere. Chief, how much more can we take? Not much, Captain. Hull integrity is down to 40%. One more good hit and we're done. Elena looked at the tactical display. The human fleet's surprise attack had done significant damage, but the hegemony forces were already adapting. In minutes they'd reorganize and crush the smaller human fleet, unless someone did something dramatic to keep their attention divided. Chun, new course, take us directly at the flagship's bridge. Captain, at this range they can't miss, we'll be vaporized. Elena felt a strange calm settle over her. Maybe, but they'll have to drop their shields to get a clear shot. And when they do, Admiral Ko will have her opening. The Persistence charged toward the massive alien flagship, her ancient engines screaming with overload warnings. Energy beams converged on the small human ship from every direction, but somehow, impossibly, she kept flying. Chief Reynolds had routed every available system to their failing shields. Dr. Wilson was sealing hull breaches with emergency patches. The entire crew worked with desperate efficiency, knowing that every second they survived gave their fleet a better chance on the main screen. The supremacy of worlds filled their entire view. Elena could see individual weapon ports, the gleam of the alien bridge, even the patterns of energy flowing through their hull. Flagship is dropping forward shields to concentrate firepower, Chun reported. They want to make sure they finish us. Perfect, Elena said. Park, transmit our targeting data to Admiral Ko. Tell her the flagship's bridge is exposed. As the final enemy salvo charged up to destroy them, Elena felt proud of her crew and her ancient ship. The Persistence had lived up to her name, refusing to give up even when facing impossible odds. They'd proven that being underestimated was the greatest weapon of all.